when you come to a gym like this, I feel like it just pushes you to a different level. And I'll go the extra mile here.
Straight Outta The Lair, Flex and Rock. Rock, we got somebody in the studio today, man.
Indeed, we got a special guest in the house, the old Armenian greaser himself.
Oh my gosh,
Dan Bilzerian.
This podcast has already started, though. Before we even hit the like button, Dan Bilzerian, welcome to the show, my friend.
What an intro, the Armenian greaser. Thank you.
Jeez. Well,
it's an honor.
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can top that, but mate, great to have you on the show. Obviously, I've got to know you now over the last 3 years, since I've moved to Vegas. And suffice to say, mate, I don't know anybody like Dan Bilzerian. That is, suffice to say,
he's a prodigy.
And when you truly get to read your book, you realize the life that you've lived, my friend. And both of us have read the book, so don't be thinking I have, my friend. But listen, what a life, my friend. I don't know where you want to kick this off, but I do want to talk about the book. The floor is yours, my friend.
It's a great bathroom read for all you out there.
Yeah, speaking of bathrooms, I always piss before podcasts now. My first podcast I did,
Smart.
it was Howard Stern, and I went in there, and I had to piss, but I was super late, and I never forget, I was an hour into this thing, and I'm sweating. I got anxiety. I pushed it as long as I possibly could. I was at a point where I was I'm gonna for sure piss myself before I ask this guy to go to the bathroom in the middle of his podcast. And he's oh, we're almost done. 30 minutes later, after the point that I had decided I was almost ready to piss myself at any second, we finally wrapped the show. But it was...
So is that you telling me you need another piss?
No.
Okay, good.
That's how you...
hidden message there.
That's how you get kidney stones, Oh,
jeez.
But usually Flex asks the guests right before they come in, he's like, you got to pee? You got to drink of water? Because I think we've had that a few times. I've been sitting in the seat and been sweating myself.
Yeah, I've had a couple of bodybuilders in prep for Mr. Olympia. Literally, I know the telltale signs. Being one myself of old, right? We see the fidgeting legs, crossing the legs. You need a piss? Yeah, bro. Can I go?
Well, they also probably got enlarged prostates. He's maybe got chlamydia. So there's a few factors.
That's not verified.
Well, that's
exacerbate the.
It's a good segue into the book, mate.
Speaking of chlamydia.
Yeah, speaking of chlamydia. No, but I want to recap on the book. You told me and sent me the book, and thank you very much on that, mate. I got to read it periodically, but in the last 2 weeks, since we had to push the pod back, I've read it back to back, and it's just a fascinating insight to your life. Foreword by David Goggins, and you've got so many celebrity friends that are in that book, all these tell-alls and life experiences, mate. It's just a fantastic book.
Keystering.
Yeah, we will be talking about that. I just want to say for all the viewers who are just jumping on right now, a fantastic book. Truly breaks any stereotype or perception of Dan Bilzerian, because what you've gone through and the things that you've pushed through, adversity, diversity, to get where you are today and choose the life that you live by choice is incredible, mate. So
yeah, I wrote it like a diary that I didn't want anybody to find. So I felt
good way of putting it.
I was if I just put all the really bad shit in here, then it'll kind of temper the crazy stuff. Because I felt I don't know, I didn't want it to be a whole braggy tale, so I just kind of told it, good, the bad, and the ugly. So mostly ugly.
It was an easy read for me, and I actually learned a lot. I actually learned more about you, and I knew a lot about you already, but I learned a lot of things in there, and I think anybody who actually reads it and goes through and sees the evolution, it is pretty impressive, and the poker battles and getting through that. And I know a lot of people out there probably think you just inherited all your money, and
well, that was kind of the thing. Is that's what got me into the poker game, so I can't really be too mad about it because I relied on that kind of background or image to get into those games. So, and I kind of perpetuated that a little bit. I mean, I did have a trust fund. It just didn't kick in until I was 35. So, yeah, I mean, it was kind of like a double-edged sword. I cared more about getting into the good games than people thinking that I did it all myself. So, take the money instead of the glory, Well,
dig into that, Dan. For people who don't know, you didn't inherit this, crazy amount of money. You truly earned yourself to the top.
Well, at one point it was a crazy amount. I think it was worth like $100 million at one point. But yeah, the government sold off a bunch of the stock, which caused it to tank. And then, by the time I got it, it was like $1 million. It was just, insignificant.
But didn't you blow through that in 1 year?
I mean, that didn't even cover the jet fuel. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like for that year. And I had bought a jet like 4 years before. But yeah, it was really insignificant. But I don't think that a lot of poker players want to admit to themselves that they kind of did it wrong. And a lot of these guys focus on, being known as the best player, winning these tournaments or whatever. And I really just focused on getting into the best games. And that was a big part of, to me, playing poker is like, playing against bad players to me is more important than being slightly better. Like, I would rather be like an 87% player that's playing against 50% guys than a guy that's like a 99 beating the, 96ers. And their edge is like very small. So for me, I kind of like identified the biggest edge, which, I mean, that's kind of what gambling is mostly about, is exploiting edges. And so, yeah, I just focused on that.
Yeah, those big games. I mean, obviously, that's got to be super stressful. I've read a lot about, like, there's a crazy stress that's obviously going through these 12-hour or 24-hour games, right? Like, talk about that a little bit, because I know you've had some crazy head-to-head $50 million type matches, hand-type matches, and, like,
the pressure.
The pressure.
Yeah, it was stressful. I mean, to a point where my actual hair was falling out of the table. Like, I ran my hair. Yeah, and it wasn't the juice. But yeah, it was just a crazy thing, man. And I got to a point where the wins didn't make me nearly as happy as the losses made me pissed off, and the money didn't really make any difference in my life. So I think that's when I decided to quit, was when it was just like, it's kind of a negative free roll. Like, if I won more money, my life wasn't going to get better. And if I lost money, it was going to piss me off. And I didn't like the stress. I wouldn't eat. I've always been into working out and health and whatever. And poker's a really unhealthy sport. Like, you're not eating, you up your sleep, your cortisol levels go up, so you're breaking down muscle. I mean, cortisol, right? So it's like, it's a lot of bad stuff, and people don't really take it into account. Plus, you're just in an immobile position, sitting there for whatever, 12, 14 hours. And, it's tough. You get out of there and your adrenal system is drained, but then you can't still sleep because you're all jacked up, and then you got to take a sleeping pill to go to bed, and the sleep's not that great. It's just a unhealthy living. The nice thing about it is you have a lot of flexibility. You can do what you want. You got no boss, make a lot of money. But the downside is just, I think it's really bad for your health.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be just that amount of stress. I've seen even with chess players too, when they're sitting there for X amount of time, they're like literally losing weight. Like, the stress levels are just such a crazy high that it's literally, the stress is just killing you guys as you're sitting there playing. Yeah,
I mean, when you're sitting in a stationary position, you're not moving, but your mind is going a million miles an hour. I don't think that's like that natural of a state. And I think that's the state that a lot of us are perpetually in now, with social media and with internet and with, just all these like high adrenaline things. And usually when you're going through adrenaline, you're doing something physical, and your body can burn off that energy. And a lot of times when you're playing video games and you've got this stress and you've got this adrenaline, but you're not actually physically moving, then it creates this like imbalance where your mind is going through all this crazy stuff, but your body's just sitting on your ass. So you don't really have a way to like flush out the cortisol and the adrenaline and stuff like that. So I think it's probably one of the reasons why a lot of people have anxiety today, is because their mind gets so much stimulation, their body doesn't have, the same stimulus to match.
I completely agree.
I can agree with that too.
Yeah.
Having this injury, my mind is all over the place, and I've had no outlet.
Yep.
Just PT.
Yep.
And I have wild ADHD, but I don't want to stay on the poker topic. So you said you have a lot of things racing through your brain when you're sitting there. What kind of things? Are you just trying to guess the next play, or is it
read the man, right?
Well,
is it the...
I mean, that's a part of it. So you're reading the person. You're thinking about like, what could he have? What does he think that I have? What does he think that I think that he has?
Jeez.
And then there's like a lot of levels to that. Like, how much have I been bluffing before? Do I want to seem like I'm bluffing? Do I want to seem like I'm going for value? What percentage of the time do I think he's going to fold? What percentage of the time am I going to hit my hand? What percentage of the time is my hand better than his? At the same time, like, is this guy losing? And because he's losing, is he going to play more aggressive? Is he going to play more passive? Is he going to try and hit hands? Like, there's so many calculations going on all at the same time. Meanwhile, you have to just remain calm as a cucumber, act like you don't care. and because the pros are the ones that are like analyzing everything, and you don't want to appear as a pro, so there's a lot of leveling going on in your mind. You're also doing a lot of calculations, and then you're trying to not let it affect you too. You also don't want to give off tells. You're looking for their tells. You're trying to calculate the pots. You know how much you want to bet. You want to overbet the pot. You want to bet 3/4 of the pot. Like how much money do you have in your stack? How much money does he have in his stack? If you bet this and he ships, then can you call? Like, is it correct? You know what I'm saying? There's so
I don't know what you're saying, but I agree with you. That's wild, man.
Check all night, Mr. Son of a bitch.
We just watched that last night.
Bro, they're coming out with a Rounders too, and I think I sent it to you. You need to get in that movie.
I wasn't in that Cool Kids group message. Sorry, guys.
Have you seen Rounders?
Yes, a while ago.
That movie got me into poker and made me want to get into it just watching the movie.
I think got a lot of people in. I must have watched that movie like 200 times when I was in college. Like every poker game that we played, it was just like on repeat. In the
Teddy KGB all day.
Yeah, you just like the poker game would stop when the big scenes would come on. But
I hate to be that guy. I've never played poker.
I mean, it's not something that you just like kind of do. I mean, it's something that you really have to learn, or else you're just going to lose a lot of money.
Well,
never played like with your friends, or never gambled.
Well, again, this is the different part of the world I come from. There was nobody playing poker growing up. No college, no, it was play rugby, fight.
But that's what I'm
saying.
Like
those.
You don't kind of do it. You like
you know
either
what I mean.
Play or you don't play. And if you kind of play, you're just going to piss away money, because you can't play poker unless you're playing for money. And if you don't play for an amount of money that you care about, it's kind of hard for it to really be a fun game. So you either get the bug or you don't. And it's definitely better to not get the bug, I would say.
I've stayed away from the bug because unless you haven't already noticed, super competitive in anything I do.
Addictive personality, yeah.
And also, I'm very emotional. So if I was losing, I don't think I could hide. I can't fake being fake. That's why people friends me.
Yeah.
And also, it'd be on my face if I was not doing well too.
I just don't want to sit there in that much stress, dude. It's almost like winning the money, like losing the money's worse, and it's like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, you mentioned that, Dan, and that's interesting. Like, so you never felt whole when you won. You were more pissed off, you said.
Well, there was times, I would say, like in college, I think the wins mattered a lot more to me because it meant something. Like I would go maybe buy a motorcycle because I won, or I would get a nicer car, or it was like we could get another plasma TV. There was like some correlation between the win and what you would do with it. And then there was like a level of freedom too with the money, is like, okay, if I get to a certain point, then I don't ever have to work for anybody. I could travel. I don't have to listen to this dipshit teacher. I don't, my homework doesn't matter. Like there was like real tangible things correlated with the wins versus later in life when you've got all the stuff that you need. I mean, listen, once basic needs are met and once you have real freedom, it's kind of like the hedonistic treadmill. Like the incremental money doesn't bring you more happiness. I mean, temporarily you'll get the pleasure, whatever, but you just calibrate to that. You calibrate to it in like 3 to 6 months, and then that is your baseline. So even if you make $500 million, you are not going to be statistically happier than if you had $10 or $20 million. And in fact, maybe less happy because now you're used to only the best of the best of the best shit. And there's so many things that are a letdown, and you have so far to fall, right? And you're also comparing yourself with all these other people, and it's just like never becomes enough. And then the money really isn't fulfilling because every dollar that you make, it literally makes no difference to you. And so I think that it's one of those things where if you correlate the money directly to your happiness, you're never going to be happy.
When do you hit that glass ceiling where you were like, I've got all this money and there's only a few things that are bringing that happiness in at that point in time, right?
There was a few key moments of my life. I remember in college distinctly thinking, like, if I had $1 million, that would be it. I'd be set. I could have the motorcycle. I could tell my principal to off. Like, you know what I mean? I'd get the pussy. Like, I'd have the nice TV. Like, it was like, that's it. You're set. Like $1 million.
Bar is low.
Yeah, like come in there with a backpack full of cash and buy the Mercedes like at 50 cents. You know what I mean? Like get rich or die trying. Like that was the dream.
Yeah.
And then it was like 5 million, and then it was 10, and then it was 50. And I remember like every time I would hit a milestone, it'd be like sure. Like I was like okay, like 10 million is enough. Like I get the house, and then it was like okay, I need the jet. But then like 50 is for sure enough. You know what I mean? And then 100 is like okay, definitely 100. Yeah. It's just never. It's
now
never
you're not
enough.
even living like a normal human anymore. And Dana White told me this one time because he was like, anything in the 2-3 million range, you're still working your ass off every day. Think over 10 million. At 10 million, you're lightly working. You're picking and choosing what you want. 50 million to 100 million, you're not living like a normal human anymore. Like, or 100 million plus, you don't live like a normal human anymore.
No, you don't. But you think that you do, and for you it's normal, and that's kind of the thing, is like whatever you perceive as normal is normal for you. Right? So you're living in this like bubble, and then everybody else is living in reality, but for you, you know, your normal is your normal. And so I just, like I said, basic needs met. That I think is the limit to where like the money actually does bring happiness. And I remember the time when it really stuck out. I was on a 300-foot yacht with like 30 girls, super hot chicks, all trying to me, and I had every single thing I wanted: money, the fame, all the bullshit. And I was like, I'm miserable. I was less happy on that trip than I'd been on many other vacations. And you know, a lot of times you tell yourself like the money doesn't bring you happiness, or the money isn't the answer, or whatever. But that was a time when I was like, okay, now I'm sure. Like sometimes you're like, oh, you stick the finger in the light socket and it shocks you, but like, let's try it again. And like, does it really shock me that much? You know, like whatever. But that was a moment I'll never forget, where it's just like, okay, like you can't get a bigger boat. You know, like my dick can't go into more chicks. Like,
you tried. You definitely tried.
We're at a max, you know, like with the Cialis and the testosterone and the stem cells. Like my dick is at max volume.
I'm maxing this thing out.
You know. And I just, like I said, I was happy on other vacations. In fact, I was actually kind of miserable on that vacation, because I remember my energy just being like pulled in so many different directions. And I think that's one of the problems with dating a lot of girls, is that they do just like suck your energy. And so
dating a lot of girls at the same time.
Yeah. Well, it's a weird thing. Like actually dating 5 girls, I think, is harder than dating like 50 or 100. When you date 4 or 5 girls, they require more. They're actually more jealous. It's just a different dynamic, and they're all kind of like competing for that main girl role. When you're dating like 50 or 100 girls, they're just happy for the time, and they're also so interchangeable that like they cause you no stress. You don't care. But when you're only hanging out with like 4 or 5 girls, it's kind of like, you know, if you lost one of them, you would care more. Like you get a little.
One wants more time more than the other.
Yeah, like I don't know how these Mormon guys like have the 5
I was about
wives.
to say it.
Like I just don't know. And then like secretly behind the scenes, these chicks have got to be like cutting each other's throats, because like they act like they're cool with it, and they are when it's like 20 or 50 or whatever. And it's just kind of like, it's not even an idea that they might be exclusively dating you. But when it goes down to like 4 and it becomes more of like a possible reality, then all of a sudden like the claws come out. So.
Yeah. How does dating 100 girls look like?
I mean, it's just.
Let's look at his DMs real quick.
Yeah.
Well, every week there's just, you know, in order to do that, you have to have a pipeline. So, you know, my pipeline was, you know, we were doing test shoots every week. All these girls were hitting me up like, oh, you know, I want to come by or whatever. And so I would just have them all come by on like a Thursday. And then they would stay through the weekend. And so my house would just be like full of whatever girls I wanted. And I would always book them only for like a day or two. And then if I liked them, they could stay. I didn't like kicking girls out. So they would always come under the assumption that they would be leaving soon. And then we would adjust accordingly if, you know, they were cool. It's like, okay, you know,
yeah,
you can
you're
hang
cool.
longer. Yeah,
Stay.
right. So like, yeah, exactly. And then there wasn't
It's
like
a vetting process.
Yeah, and then they never got bored, because it was always like, oh shit, you know, we only have one day. They never like tried to play any games about like you. It was always like as soon as possible. And so that's another thing too, is like when I would like do dates, I would always like, hey, I got an hour on Thursday or whatever, and then they would come over and it would just be like it would be like a race to bang you. And so what I found is when you had time constraints or a limited amount of time, they valued it more, and they never got bored. They were never, you know, it was just always like, okay, how can I get my time with him? And so yeah, like I said, you have to have the pipeline, so they're just constantly coming in. And then you've got the repeats. For me, you know, if I hadn't the girl in 2 or 3 months, I wouldn't even remember what it was like. So it was like a new girl.
You wouldn't even remember the girl.
Well, I mean, like, there was times.
There's been a few times.
Yeah, I actually introduced myself 3 times to a girl that I'd on 3 different occasions. It was pretty embarrassing, but that's another story. But anyways,
that's another story.
Yeah. So yeah, you would have kind of like the regulars, and it was always important to have regular girls around. And this is like one of the things that I learned was, when you went on vacation or when you went to the club, having 2 or 3 super hot girls that were like eager to you again was very powerful, because then you could just ignore all the other girls and they would be competing to talk to you. This is one of the things that I, you know, kind of like.
It's the setup.
Yeah, I broke this down in the course. So like the last 2 years, I've been working on this like course for guys to like teach them what they're doing wrong. So I think 99% of guys have no idea what they're doing wrong, and then like the optimal approach. And it's kind of similar to gambling, right? Like in the beginning of gambling, like everybody had like an idea of like what was right. And then 10 years later, like all the best pros would all kind of talk and we would agree on stuff. And there was stuff that we were all sure was right. And the quants and the supercomputers came out and the game got solved and we realized like how wrong we were about this shit. And it was like, you know, you're supposed to bet like twice the pot on the turn in certain spots. You're supposed to just do all-in bluffs. You know what I mean? Like stuff that nobody even considered to do was, you know, game theory optimal was correct. And I think that's one of the things that I found with the dating stuff when I really like spent the last 2 years deconstructing what had worked and what didn't work was how wrong guys are about things that they're sure that they're right about. Like the commonly accepted like right approach for a woman is just wrong.
Such as what? Give
like,
us.
I think you're beautiful. Can I buy you a drink? It's horrendous. You're over communicating interest. You're putting the girl in a position like, I know I can have this guy. Do I want him? At that moment, your flaws become magnified. It's just like the whole power shift changes. It's like a traveling salesman shows up at your house and like maybe he has great pots and pans to sell you. Maybe you need great pots and pans. But when he shows up at your door, you're looking at everything wrong with those pots and pans. And you're thinking about like, could I get it cheaper there? You know, you're thinking about all this stuff. Versus like, think like an auction. You're at an auction and there's an item that you really want. And in your mind, you remember all the times that you really wanted something, you didn't get it. You know, and there's 5 of them that want that shit. You're not thinking about what's wrong with it. You're thinking, how do I get it? And that's the difference when a girl is chasing you versus when you're chasing a girl. And it's on both sides. Like on the side where you're chasing the girl, your flaws become magnified. You know, her flaws disappear and vice versa. When she's chasing you, your flaws disappear and her flaws magnify. I mean, how many times have you had a girl that's just like hits you up constantly, this like stage 5 clinger? All you can think about is shit wrong with her. Yeah. If she just kind of played it cool and like wasn't so thirsty, you know, maybe she wouldn't be like the Friday night last minute booty call if nothing pans out of the club chick. You know what I'm saying? Like
the 3 a.m. text.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, we all got those girls.
You up right
now?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're awake.
Hey, sorry, I didn't text you back the last 7 times, but like, what are you doing? And it's like 4 a.m. And then all of a sudden she pings you back immediately. Well, oh, I'm just hanging out at the house. What are you doing? Yeah, like, yeah, right. Bitch, you're sleeping. But anyways, the point is that, you know, it was only because I had a big sample size of girls that wanted me that I screwed it up with, and a large sample size of girls that wanted me that I also. And most guys have, you know, like. Maybe they have the girls that wanted to come but most guys, and I mean like 99% of guys, don't have a huge sample size of girls that really wanted them that they screwed it up with. And only in comparing the things that I did with both of those that were different did I figure out like how I screwed it up with a lot of girls that wanted me, you know? And I'm talking about like girls that DM me like, I want to you, butt naked, asshole spread, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm ready. Like,
I want to see these DMs.
Like, that's a girl that wants you, right? There's no, like, misconception.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
And like I said, and also girls that I did later. So I know they wanted me because they, like, had hit me up, whatever. But the common thread was, it was girls that I, like, really liked or that I would start chasing, and I would act differently because of that. And when I did that, all of a sudden the results completely changed.
Got too nice, I
just acted differently. I didn't operate from a place of abundance. There's just a lot of different things, right? But the point is that a lot of guys don't even understand how many things they're doing wrong, and they're putting in a lot of effort that actually hurts them. So they're doing things thinking that it's going to help them get this girl, and it's actually hurting them. And it's counterintuitive because in work, in relationships with friends, all this stuff, like, you know, more effort yields a better result. Usually you work your ass off at your job, you get a promotion. You show up at 2 a.m. to help your buddy change a tire, he's got your back. You know what I'm saying? Like positive correlation between effort, right? But pre-girl, it's opposite. It's like negative correlation. The more effort that you put in to a girl before you, the more it cuts against you. So anyway, so I did, you know, so I spent the last like 2 years creating this thing where it's like just a basic roadmap of all the things they do wrong, the correct approach. It's like the way I look at it is like guys have a map. They're trying to get to Mexico and it says Mexico's north in Canada, and they're just like traveling north, and they're just never going to get to Mexico. Yeah, their dick is never going to get to a vagina. You know, like it's just not going to happen. And you know, it would be like if you went to the gym and you hit the heavy bag for 10,000 hours, but you never had a coach. Like, doesn't mean you're going to be a great boxer. You put in the time, but like if you worked with Mayweather's team for, you know, whatever, 5 days, and then you put in 500 hours, you would probably be a much better boxer than the guy that did 10,000 hours with no coaching. And guys will like get coaching with every, not that I want to be a dating coach, but I just wanted to put out like the right information. So I felt like that.
I think it's needed. I think it's needed for men. I mean, we're
so many
seeing
soft fucking.
I don't know. I don't know what the exact stat is. So somebody, can quote me in the comments. But
it's like half the guys in the last year have not had sex. And
it's like 40 or 50% are virgins still going into their 40s.
It's absurd.
It's a crazy number.
But more than that bothered me was the relationships that I saw with my friends with girls that were just so subpar, like guys that were worth $100 million, $500 million, literally dating hookers, engaged to girls that, had like their whole friend group, like just embarrassing shit. And then like the way they behaved actually caused, because they, there's a lot.
No, I get it, because I've been around a lot of guys who've made a lot of money and had zero clue how to talk to chicks. They got a lot of money. They're they got the boat and they're trying to do the stuff, but like they don't know how to talk to them. Well, they don't know how to engage.
That's a part of it, but another part of this is like they have this like subconscious descending value in the girl's eyes because they're making so many sacrifices for the girl instead of like standing their ground here and there, and because of that, like all these tiny sacrifices add up. And it's like a war of power. It's like every little battle is, like going to contribute to whether or not you win or lose the war. And what happens is a lot of these guys, they just make so many sacrifices that become expected instead of appreciated. And then all of a sudden the girl cheats on him. And it always ends with like, oh, he was such a nice guy, but, it's always like every chick that's like finished sucking my dick telling me about her boyfriend that's sitting at home. It's like, oh, he was such a nice guy, but that's always how it goes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so ridiculous. And in dating, this like being a really nice guy just gets punished over and over and over again. And like I said, I think these guys don't have the right directions. So that's why they're continuing to get like the same bad result over and over and over again.
We were just talking about this. There's a difference between being a nice guy and a good man.
Literally talking about this about an hour ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we won't open that kind of worms up. Is this a online course? So tell us about where you can find it too, Dan.
Called Sigma Society. That's like, I just kind of dropped it in there. I spent, almost 2 years. It's not that long. It's like 5.5 hours, but it's basically just like a full deconstruction of, like I said, all the things that like I and other guys do wrong and don't know. And then like the small tweaks that you can make that'll have a significant impact, like positive or negative. And then like a lot of the psychology too, like why women do certain things, why they respond to, like this stimulus or that, or, and so I think understanding the psychology will actually help guys also in negotiations and business, whatever, because it the thread goes through. So I felt like it was important, and I don't know, I was just kind of tired of just doing the pleasure-seeking stuff, the hedonistic treadmill. So I wanted to do something that I felt like was going to contribute some value. So that's what I did.
I know we kind of tentatively spoke about it earlier, but was this something that you've just generally seen? Like,
yeah, I saw it with my friends. I mean, I saw it with guys. Like, I mean, the status of dating is so bad out there, and I think it's partially due to social media because these women have this unrealistic expectation of what they deserve. That's a piece of it. I think another part of it is that guys aren't having as many normal like human interactions that they used to. Like in our generation, like you would have to actually talk to people. You would tell stories, like people would communicate. It wasn't just like glued to the cell phone. Like you literally go to a party now and it's just like a bunch of all glued to their cell phone. Versus like when we were kids, nobody had cell phones. You had to talk. And because you had to talk, you became better at telling stories and you were funnier and you connected with people and whatever. And now it's just like, it's kind of like degraded to only an online dating sort of thing, and because of that, they've shown like a very small percentage of guys get the swipes, but the percentage of guys that get the swipes get all the swipes. And then also in social media now, because of the access, like, if a chick wanted Leo back in the day, she had to like find out where he was going to be, fly to LA, show up at that club in hopes of maybe seeing, you know what I mean? Like maybe.
And then he picks her.
Yeah. And he also has to pick her, right? Versus now it's like she could just slide in the DMs and she could be like his 4 o'clock on Tuesday. And so like now these chicks are able to, these guys aren't going to date them, but because these guys will have sex with them, these girls then think that like, okay, like I can get this guy, and then they get ran through by all these like high value guys, and then they end up settling for some, rich guy that can take care of them. They never respect. And the rich guy's just like happy to get her because she's hot and doesn't realize that she's been run through. And so it's this whole like bad relationship where she doesn't respect him. He thinks he's so happy to get this girl. She knows she's kind of a ran through piece of shit, so she doesn't really respect herself. And the better he treats her, the less she respects him. It's this whole like bad cycle that I just see going on. And it's funny because if the guy just acted slightly different, he could still be with the same girl. He would just get a lot more respect. She'd treat him better, less likely to cheat on him. You know, she'd be sucking his dick on command, and she'd be happier to do it because she would have more respect for the guy. So it's like, I just see these relationships where there's such a disparity in value, which is fine. You can date down. You can date a chick that's like just so happy to be with you, because I've done that, and I actually like that. I don't mind it as long as she like is in that mindset of like, I'm so happy to be with this motherfucker. Let me do anything I can to make him happy, as opposed to her being like, damn, this guy's a fucking sucker. Let me see how much money I can get out of him, which is the side that I see more often than not.
As do I, unfortunately. But I know we can go in so many different directions. I know that, you know, you're limited on time. First of all, I didn't say this at the beginning of the show. Thank you, bro. I know you're going to jump on a jet in a couple of days' time. Yeah. I don't know if you want to break that news or not, but regardless, you put time in your day to come and pull this off for us, and I appreciate that, mate. So that's why, with your life and knowing you more now since I've been in Vegas and the book, so many different topics, so many hats you've worn. But I do want to cover, because obviously it's a little close to home for you too, your time in SEALs training and that horrific battle you put on yourself to get through to Hell Week twice.
Yeah, that was a tough period of my life, because I put so much into it, and then to get kicked out one day before graduation after doing like the whole thing twice, it was a tough pill to swallow for sure. I think that military training was probably some of the best stuff that I did, though, honestly, because I went from living in a big house to being in the shitty little barracks. And I think like my level of appreciation for all these different things just went through the roof. And I realized that a lot of the happiness and stuff that I found was through achieving things, getting through first phase or getting through second phase, or accomplishing things, as opposed to having things. Because when I was in the military, I was poor. I mean, I was like smuggling steroids up my ass to save $150 that I could have paid a bunch of money.
Which we need to talk about. You can't just skim over that.
The technical term.
This audience is bodybuilders, bro.
No, I mean, listen, I've always been open about the drug stuff. You know, I think a lot of guys kind of hide it. And I think it's not something that young guys should be doing, and I wouldn't encourage it. But I do think that too many young guys do it without knowledge. And if you do it too young, you're going to fuse your epiphyseal plates, stunt your growth. Like, you know, there's definitely some big negatives. Grow tits if you don't understand like the aromatization process. And, you know, there's competitive blockers, there's aromatase inhibitors. There's like a lot of stuff that guys don't know. They're just like, oh, I'm just going to blast 500 milligrams of test.
I'm going to get jacked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This is what I read online.
Everybody says trend is good, so let me just start with that. You know, it's like, dude, my first cycle was like 50 to 150 milligrams of Deca. Like literally just in the red eject syringe with an 18 gauge. Because I didn't have the literature. But I still gained 15 pounds on 3 weeks, and I would have done it longer. I just got sent out to a base, and I couldn't smuggle it back from Mexico anyway.
Wait,
come on. I'm trying to pull this story. I'm trying to pull this story out.
Just to let you know, they're in the book. They're in the book, but we gotta hear these stories, bro.
Okay,
come on.
So the first time I ever did steroids was I just gotten kicked out of SEAL training. I had finished Hell Week. I went through natural, and I'd always like been curious about it because my cousin, you know, he had big arms, and he did a D-ball cycle, grew breasts, and lost some of his hair, but he got big arms. I was like, I want big arms, right? So I was like, maybe it's worth it, you know. And anyway,
his hair.
Yeah, like, who cares, you know? And so it was always something I was curious about, but I was scared because he had like some pretty negative side effects, because he didn't have any knowledge. He didn't have any of the, you know, like the aromatase inhibitors. There, you know, nobody even really knew what.
There really wasn't any knowledge back then, and there was no internet.
No,
right?
I had like Anabolics 2000.
You just stole it out of my mouth, bro.
That was like the book.
The Bible.
And I read that cover to cover multiple times.
I may have read it once or twice.
Yeah. And so you had that, but you didn't have like a YouTube video even to like show you how to inject the shit, right? So I had no idea. So I ended up, like I said, first cycle, I go across the border. Which, by the way, in the military, you get caught. You're like literally thrown in the break.
I know this.
Out of the program, like really bad. Forget about the steroids, just being down there. Yeah. Anyways, so I'm like in the back of a Mexican like veterinary pharmacy, and I got some like Pablo like open hand slapping my ass and then blasting in an 18 gauge harpoon, which like bled everywhere.
Screwdriver.
Just to shoot me with a 1 cc of 50 milligrams per cc of Deca. It looked like a decent amount. I'm like, okay, this is like a dose. Like maybe I read that book wrong. Like I don't know. So I did that, and then I was like, read the book like 3 times in the DECA section, and I was like, fuck, 200 milligrams seems like the minimum. I was like, okay, maybe I'll do 100. Like, I don't want to grow tits. So the next time I did like the 2 cc's, and then I think I did 3, and then they had to put them in like a different syringe, because when I did the 2, I did 1 in each cheek, and then the 3, I just had them put it in a 3 cc needle. Anyways, I gained 15 pounds. I just got out of, SEAL training. I was like malnourished. I just finished Hell Week. Like, the Hell Week is like, 5.5 days with no sleep and running 144 miles, all this crazy shit. So I had stress fractures, and I was broke down. I was like 165 pound, like scrawny dude. And I did this, I never forget. I did 3 weeks of DECA, no test base, which I guess I probably didn't need because I had like natural tests. And I gained 15 pounds. And like, for the first time in my life, I looked like I actually worked out. Like, I still look like shit, but I looked like I might have been in the gym here or there, Yeah. And I'd never been so angry. I truly understood the meaning of roid rage on 150 milligrams of DECA, apparently, when they told me that I had to go out to the island, because that was like, I was like in this goddamn thing.
Throw it right back, Dan.
I'm trying to figure out somewhere to put it where it's not me. Anyways, they sent me out to the island.
You want to help him put it back in the...
And, yes, somewhere.
Give him more...
Where it's not like pulling.
Give him some more length.
There we go. Yeah, that's what I told the surgeon.
I set you up for that, bro. And you just went right over your head. Anyway, you're on the way to the island.
Anyway, so they tell me I got to go out to the island. And I'm like, I didn't care that I had like, sweep floors, or that I'd just gotten kicked out of SEAL training, or that I was a loser, or that I was probably going to a ship, or that my dad thought I was a scumbag, or that I had no money, or that I wasn't getting any pussy. I was pissed because I didn't have no more steroids. I was like, forget the rest. I was like literally ready to like destroy my entire apartment. I was so much angrier that I didn't have my steroids and I couldn't work out than that I got kicked out of SEAL training after spending like a year of my life and getting my dick kicked in the... Like, I was so much more pissed about the lack of juice. But anyway, so I just stopped cold turkey, lost like a lot of my gains, and but that kind of like broke the seal. And then I never really like did any like hardcore cycles. But when I went to SEAL training the second time, I was taking, it's like 100 milligrams of test, and I was taking like 200 milligrams of equate, and I got some HGH prescribed from a doctor. And it was like, dude, it was night and day. I checked in at 178 pounds, and I was like 193 by the time like in-doc rolled around. I like gained like 15 pounds of muscle or 10 pounds of muscle, and I was faster too.
Yeah.
And it was like the craziest thing. And I just felt better. Like, it didn't help me to like carry around all this muscle, but I didn't care. I was like so happy that I had it. And I'll never forget like the recovery, and just kind of like, I don't know, it was just like the perfect drug for SEAL training, because you're getting a small amount of sleep. Like, you need to be motivated, you need to be gung-ho. And it was just like going through on the sauce versus natural was like, it was like a different sport. Plus I was in better shape too.
Was it other guys also?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I
would
literally
think so,
went
right?
down with other guys to get shit. So
That is
like,
true.
I know for sure.
And talking of that story,
Yeah.
the trip to Tijuana, we can't leave that off the table, Dan.
It was actually Ensenada.
I will let it
go. Yeah. So anyways, we went down to Ensenada, and we went to like this, like veterinary, but not veterinary. It was like for horses. It was like
It's not a vet.
It was like
It's
for
for
it was like for
specifically
cattle, like cattle and horses. It wasn't, And so we went in there, and it was like literally like dirt floor, and we just got a bunch of shit. And I remember all I got is test and equipoise. But my buddy is like, he just shot like an entire bottle of Winstrol, because like, shooting it was cheap, but like bringing it across the border, right? And so, which is like a horrible idea, because it's like super fast acting. Anyways, so we're like, well, we don't want to get caught, but we don't want to keep coming down here every week. So we're like, well, we'll just stick it up our ass. And keister it, and my buddy's like, well, if we put it in a condom, we use lube, it's not going to be that bad. So we're like in this bathroom stall, And I can only imagine what the people heard, because I didn't really think about it from like the outside, because there's definitely like other people in the bathroom. We found this out when we had left the bathroom, and the entire restaurant was like staring at us. You could hear a mouse fart in this place.
Hold on, was like one guy shoving
It was
into
well,
the
like
other
the
guy's
things
butt?
that were heard was like, I can't get this in my ass. Quit being such a pussy. You know, here, give me some lube. Like, it was just like,
my
you know,
God.
the things that you heard. I mean, we're either smuggling drugs or we're each other in the ass. I don't know which would be worse.
He's a mule. He's a mule.
So we walked out, and we're all just like sweating. And then we had to drive across the border, which was damn near like 2 hours. And I'll never forget, like, when we, you know, when you go up to the border, it's like, it wasn't as bad as now, because now you need like a passport and all this shit.
Yeah.
But like, they still ask you questions, and like in your mind, you're like, oh, these guys are like human lie detectors.
They know.
We can't give any information off. And meanwhile, we're like sweating profusely with AC max, like maximum anxiety, like total freak out mode. You're also like clenching your ass because you got a turtle head of steroids sticking out at all. You know, it's just like, and you're kind of like,
The prairie dogging?
oh, it's
little prairie dog?
horrendous. And
Can't we say in the law?
yeah, it was so bad. And so, anyways, I just remember like being positive that we were going to be pulled into secondary, and then like imagining, like running through in my mind, like all the different scenarios of like, oh, we're going to be in secondary, and I'm just going to like shit my pants, and like it's going to come out.
Out
Like,
it comes.
it was really bad. We ended up making it across, and it was like 5 minutes across the border. My buddy's like, pull over. We're like, okay, so we pull over, and he like literally just drops trowel in the middle of a Goodyear parking lot. And he shats out his fucking juice, and then obviously he's not gonna just like leave it there.
No.
So he like goes through his shit, picks up the condom, and just gets in the car. And we're just like, come on, bro. Like, what the? So all the windows are down, but it's like wafting the smell. It's just horrendous. So we had like another 10 minutes smelling his shit on the way to the house. And I remember we just like literally like jammed the thing in park and like blasted through the front door. And this girl who had loaned us her car was making me chicken at the time. And I remember my buddy just like, there was one bathroom. I blasted in there and like fired this thing into the shitter. And my buddy just like panicked, looking around the room. He's like, the only thing he could identify that he could shit in was the sink, which also had the chicken. So he just like one leg up, just fires his shit right into the sink. And this girl's just horrified because she's like, what have you been using my truck for? And it was like still running on the curb. And I'll never forget, she just like looked at us like, what the? Turned around, ran out of the apartment, and I just like never saw her again.
Jeez.
Not that I wanted to explain that.
Yeah, no. She definitely ran
Remember,
for,
Yeah.
remember
the
the
right
story she says about Dan? That guy came to my house and shit in my sink.
Yeah. Projectile shit right into my
You
chicken.
don't know Dan. You don't know Dan.
be
Shit
fair-
in my sink.
To be fair, I didn't shit in her sink. My friend did, but
Well,
regardless,
you know the story
On
gets
the chicken,
twisted, bro. You know how it goes.
That's that guy. You shit in my sink.
That's that guy. But yeah, you got all the way to the end of Hell Week again, and
Well, way through Hell Week. I got 1 day before graduation. So Hell Week is, you had like, I don't know, like 1 to 2 months of indoctrination, which is kind of the same shittiness as first phase. And then you do Hell Week like 3 weeks into that. So you're kind of like a few months into, 2.5 months into training. And then you've got another damn near 6 months after that. So I was like way beyond. And then I actually got 1 day before graduation there, and then I got rolled all the way back to the very beginning of second phase, then did all that shit again. And this is the second time that I went to Bud. But yeah, it was miserable, man. But you know, it's funny because looking back now, I'm just like so happy that I didn't graduate. But at the time, I thought it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. So strange how that shit, you know, works out. Because if I'd done it, I'd like never had to do anything else. I'd like bragged to everybody, oh, I was a Navy SEAL, and feel like I'd like climbed the mountain, you know.
Yeah, but your life would have taken a way different turn.
That's what I'm
You
saying.
know?
I wouldn't have like that insecurity to drive me to do all the crazy shit that I did. And I think in doing that, I realized that also probably wasn't what I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing. But I think it was one of those things that I just had to do in order to know. So
in the book you talk about you trying to gain that respect from your dad too, and that's why you kind of went into the military to chase that, right?
yeah, I didn't get a lot of attention or respect from him growing up. And so I figured that would be, you know, he was in Vietnam, and he volunteered to go in, and he was an officer and all this stuff. So I figured if I did that, that, you know, he'd have to respect that. And also I just figured it would get me pussy, and I wanted to brag about it.
I really just did it to get laid.
The usual reasons. Yeah.
Well, talking of which, you guys have known each other, what, 20 years?
No, less than that. I think
12.
I moved out here in 09. Yeah, I moved out in 09. And we like briefly met a few times, but we didn't actually start hanging out, I don't think, until probably more recently.
Yeah, 2020, really. 2019, like really hardcore in 2020.
Yeah, like
2020, when everything shut down, we were we were out doing something every day.
Yeah, we had mutual friends, but it was one of those things where I was in LA most of the time. I was gambling. It was like, we had similar circles, would see each other, but
back in 2008, when and I don't know if I even told you, but I think you know this. I think we talked about this, but we were basically banging the same girl.
Oh shit! Okay, you gotta tell.
Not
You gotta tell
basically,
this.
definitely banging the same.
We were definitely. This story.
It was a 100%.
Okay.
And this wasn't the only one, but yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It was not the only one, but this one was like Playmate of the Year, and like there was like she was, I don't know, she was playing in the middle of both sides, but there was like a time where she was like, well, Dan says he's gonna kill you. And like for me, that's like a bull going red, and I'm like, really? Like, and I'm like trying to get to like Dan Fleshman and get to some people to like get to him because like I'm that guy, right? And we end up, meeting up. We end up becoming friends about it, laughing about it, and yeah, to the point. Literally, like he was saying, anytime I date any girl, I have to send him over, and he's like, "Hold on, I gotta verify this. You can't date her yet. I gotta go. Yeah, we got." There's a couple of us who's like between us, like somebody in the group's like, "Sorry,
somebody's fucked her or know somebody's fucked her."
Yeah,
it was funny. She actually did the same thing with her like ex-husband too. Like told him that I wanted to kill him, and then told me that he wanted to fight me. It was like, wow, like wanted to feel important. I think all the time. But yeah, it's funny, man. It's funny looking back, Yeah. But I think a lot of girls do stuff like that. Like they want people they want guys to compete for them. They want to feel important, So they'll start a lot of this, drama. And you see it, You see it a lot of these chicks. They'll like literally start fights, and just they'll feel validated because two guys are fighting for them,
How have you been able to navigate through all these girls without boyfriends just turning up at your house?
I mean, so I tried actually like once I got famous, I actually tried not to any girls that had boyfriends or husbands, unless they were chicks that were just like massively cheating on the guys anyways, and then I made that exception. But it was just one of those things where there was such an abundance that I felt. So in college, I was like, well, if a chick will me, she'll anybody. So there wasn't really like much responsibility there. But I felt like later on there was girls that might not have otherwise cheated, but because it was me, they would me. And the worst part about it was because their boyfriend had like said how great I was. So they'd be like, oh, well, my boyfriend's saying this guy's really great, then I better go find out for myself. So I didn't, like want to do that because I didn't really give a shit. If I had one more girl, what does it matter? But if I wreck some guy's marriage or his relationship, then
you don't want that on the conscious.
Yeah, no. And I would also like tell some of these guys too, like, by the way, your girlfriend's a fucking whore.
Here's the DM.
Well, I didn't shoot the
butthole.
DM.
Well, butthole wide open here.
The one that pops up for me is the Gucci slippers.
Yeah,
the Gucci flip flops.
That wasn't so subtle, but yeah, also, and I put in the book some of the ones too. There was like this one chick that came over. She turned her phone off for like 24 hours, was banging me. He was already pissed that she was like naked on my jet. Then she was banging me. And then she like turned her phone on after talking shit about him the whole dinner. And the first thing she said to him was like, hey, have you fed the dog? Like, I mean, these chicks are just ruthless, dude. Oh. And so after seeing enough of that stuff, that was another reason why I kind of wanted to do this course. I just like felt bad for these dudes. I don't think a lot of guys realize like how conniving and manipulative some of these girls are, and they're so blinded by it. And I've seen it because I was like that guy. I was like the guy that they would like come over and bang, and then they would have these boyfriends that would like be laughing about it at dinner or tell their girlfriends like stories, and I'm just like, I just in the ass, and she's like talking about like her engagement. It's like it's just like crazy shit. And like, can
you not talk about the engagement while I'm here in the ass?
Right, like
really not doing it for me.
I literally had a girl answer the phone while I was with her. She like told me before. She's like, oh shit, like I have to answer this. Like my boyfriend's getting pissed off, and I'm just like. Okay.
Great idea.
I'm not stopping.
Great idea.
I'm not losing momentum right now.
And she's like, I'm in a movie with my girlfriends. I'll call you out. Like, what the?
All in one breath.
Yeah, it was so crazy. Some of the stuff that I saw. And I talk about some of the stuff in the book, like the girls that, went on the boat and left their boyfriend on the pier and were like, we're not leaving until we film. Like, Just crazy.
There's an interesting stat that you've told me before, and you know, because just to have the manpower to get through 5, 6, 7 girls in one day. Like, tell us a little bit about that, because I've been around a lot of dudes who rock stars, and you know they're in that, but your numbers, your number.
Little thing called Cialis every day, like Skittles or a.
But then you get tired. Like after like the 4th one, aren't you like, I'm just tired, dude.
Yeah,
I don't want
nothing in the tank.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. Like the example that I give, the only one that seems to illustrate it would be like if a billionaire was walking down the street and he saw a $100 bill, like he's always going to pick it up. Like, I guess because when I was growing up, I didn't get a lot of pussy. I just felt like if there was a hot chick that wanted me, and I didn't feel like I was a bitch, you know. And it was kind of like, and it came from early on. Like
you are.
Yeah, like, definitely. Like you're not fulfilling your duties as a man, you know, and. It was. I think it came from like early on when I would see a hot girl, and if I didn't go talk to her, I would just internally beat myself up, like you pussy, you know, this and that. My internal pulverizing myself would be much worse than any rejection I could get from a girl, and I made sure of that because then it like forced me to talk to girls. Like, nah, like I'd come up with all these reasons, like, oh, I gotta catch this flight, or I'm late to class, but it's like, no, go do it, you know,
Go do it.
And so I think. That like insecurity, and then like also that man code, and then plus the testosterone, and then plus the Cialis, and then also the stem cells led to a situation where like if given the opportunity, like I just had to do it.
Yeah.
And the sex addiction. It was like a tornado of shit that caused this. It was a direct result.
What is the biggest number on the board?
In one day, I think 9.
That's the number. I'm like,
9 was
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
that's a lot of work in one
Couldn't
day.
walk, bro, the next day.
Did you still work out?
Of course he
Absolutely.
Respect.
did.
I never missed the training.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I would almost rarely ever like stop a workout to bang. Training, I had like a hierarchy. It was like training, weed and pussy were like interchangeable, and then like eating, showering, and work.
Right at the bottom of the totem pole.
Priorities.
Priorities. How long have you been into the training? Because since you and I met.
Pussy.
Yeah, well, fuck. I think we all know.
That's it.
Yeah.
Since I figured it out.
How long have you been into pussy?
No, because you and I met originally. I think I was training for the Mr. Olympia in 2014. We met at City Athletic.
That's right. I saw this guy walking around like, look at the guy's forearms. Like,
Yeah. He just showed me a picture the other day, and I was just like, God damn, bro. Like, you look like he's stung by 100 bees in
I'm
this
like,
photo.
I don't know who he is, but he's got to be somebody important in bodybuilding. He's too big not to be. I was there with like Steve Aoki, and I think it was like the first time I'd taken insulin or something. I was feeling like really good about myself. Like, I just shoulder pressed like the 75-pound dumbbells, and I gained like 17 pounds in a very short period of time. And then I went to go do Muay Thai, and my trainer's like, dude, he's like, not only do you look like a bag of shit, he goes, you're moving like you're moving through mud. And I'm like, yeah, I feel really bad too.
I feel like that.
Yeah.
I was like, I also feel like you're correct.
But to go back to the city, like, we seen each other, we said what's up, but then as soon as you left the gym, I can't remember if I messaged you or you messaged me, but either way, like, first, straight into it, you asked me so many high-level questions, and all our conversations, you're just a wealth of knowledge, like a seeker of knowledge, I would say.
Definitely a lot smarter than he looks.
And again, I want people to know too, like you're so data driven as well. We talk about so much stuff which a lot of people would not expect. Yeah. You're so data driven. Obviously, we've got the Whoop on, you've got Lord of the Rings Whoop, and you do all the.
Oh, he verifies all 3.
He verifies all 3. Yeah, but again,
he got me into it. He actually forced me into it when then I forced you into it.
Yeah, I'm all
That's what happened.
Yeah, like once you get that data, it's hard to not have it. I mean, and also you start to see the correlation between like, oh, I drank or I took a sleeping pill, and like that negatively affected my deep or my REM, and now I feel like shit today, or I'm not like cognitively sharp. And so you see like a lot of downstream effects. You also understand how important your recovery and your sleep is. And so I think once you start tracking stuff, it's hard to not have that information.
Yeah, I'm like addicted to it. We like every morning it's like, I'll hit you like, would you sleep? Like, I'm tracking the calories. But I remember you weren't too into it, Flex, when we first approached you.
Went to
you might have said, I will not quote you.
Well, again, you kind of Dan, you, and then maybe 1 or 2 other people were all talking about it. And I was like, I feel left out here because I knew I was sleeping shit. But then you've got that data over a period of time you can analyze and be like,
Yep.
and you see the difference in what you've done in that day, you know, like you said, if you've had a drink or whatever else. But I don't sleep much above 4 hours. But this is not about me. It's about
All three of us here.
Yeah,
We're all
I know
in
we're
a
all
sleep.
sleepers. But what,
thing.
what are you monitoring yourself? Like, what are you looking at right now?
So HRV, resting heart rate. There's a decent amount of metrics that I think are important, but the HRV is a pretty good indicator of like how you're recovering, and then the quality of your sleep, like the stages that you get in. I just because I also have sleep apnea too, so like my sleep is just very precious, and I feel like I've never been able to like run a ton of gear, and so in order for me to try and maximize my performance, I just have to get the sleep. Like that's the one factor that I have a decent amount of control over. So I try and just max that out, because without recovery, I mean, it's kind of
You're spinning wheels.
Yeah.
yeah.
What part in your life did you go all into this? Like the getting the research and being like, wow, this is interesting, and I want to change my body by diving into this.
Well, the body stuff was always interesting to me. Like I started lifting weights, I think when I was 15-ish, when I was playing baseball in high school, and then obviously the military was a whole nother step up, because your physical performance is just everything. And then when I got on the juice, then that added like a whole nother list of calculations, because now the way I would describe it is like, it's like you're going from driving Mustang to a Ferrari.
A Tesla?
No, I would never drive a Tesla, ever. So it's not like driving a Tesla. That's like being gay. But no, I mean, like a Mustang is going to go around the track 100 times. You're never going to break down. But it's not going to be that much fun, right? But like a race car, you're going to have to tune it. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do that. And it's going to break down more often. It's going to be more expensive. It's going to be a pain in the ass. You're going to have to monitor shit. When you're driving that, it's fun, And so I think when I started around with that, like I wanted to understand it, because only in understanding it can you like really tune the race car. And I had shitty genetics too, so I wanted to counter that. But yeah, so I was kind of like into that, but I didn't ever really like run cycles that often. It was just always just pretty much like HRT, and then eating the 5 meals a day, and like understanding like glycemic index, and doing carb loading and keto, and just experimenting with all the different ways that you can manipulate your body fat. And then I think it was probably, I want to say around COVID-ish time, I think, then I started like getting all the stats, and I did the Whoop, because I wasn't doing that when I was partying. I know that for sure. So it definitely wasn't until like after 19. But yeah, then I started like, monitoring it, checking my sleep, and kind of doing more on the biohacking side, like the peptides and all that. But I've always been into it, like from the nutrition side to the, training side, and the different types of training. More recently, I've actually been doing like, I will do, and I did this with J-Rock too. I'll do like a set on bench of like 95 pounds on incline, and then I'll do 135, and I'll do like 10 or 15 reps of that, and then I'll do like a few reps of 185, and then I'll go to 225, and I'll do like 12 or 13. I'll just like go all the way, balls to the wall with that one set.
225-pound dumbbells?
No.
Oh my God! I was like, geez, you
calm down, Flex.
That's what my brain was going. Sorry.
You know that your lifts are unimpressive when they don't know if it was a bar or dumbbell. And the possibility is there that it could be done with a dumbbell. You're not lifting a lot of weight.
When you said 185, I was like, that's quite a lot of weight. Anyway,
but what is it? Mike Metzger was the guy.
Heavy duty. Yeah,
heavy duty.
Where it's like
HIIT
one
training.
set to the balls to the wall. And also another thing that I noticed too is when I decreased some of the volume, I actually got better results too. And I would see that with the HRV, because I would go in and I would just annihilate my legs. 'Cause one thing about going through that crazy military training is you realize that you can push your body way further than you ever imagined. When you swim 7 miles in the ocean and you do this crazy shit, like you realize that like your mind is a big governor of like what you can do.
Whilst with stress factors, fractures too.
They don't help either.
No, those don't help.
But that is the mind over matter, right? Or whatever you want to call it.
That's the thing. And it's a lot more true with endurance, right? Like with running. Like you could just go out and probably go run a marathon right now. I know you think that you couldn't, but if I had a gun to your head and I was going to kill your family if you didn't go run 26 miles, you're going to go run 26 miles. And so it's like, and I saw it with the bike thing. Like all these gay-ass cyclists were like, there's 0% chance you can ride 300 miles in 48 hours. So like, I was like, what do you mean 0%? They're like, it's physically impossible. And I'm like, just like the gallon of milk challenge where like it sounds easy, but you can't do it. Like, you know,
hot chip challenge.
It's like, no, spoiler, like cyclists are just fags. But like,
well, speaking of cyclists,
well, hold on, I think he's
But the point is like, it was just like, it was not that hard. Like I did it in 32 hours, like a few weeks of training. It was just like, it was just like, so anyways, the point that I'm making is, with endurance, you can just go way beyond what you think that you can do. And I think a part of it too is like with running, like the first mile always sucks. Like whether you can run 100 miles or 50 miles, the first mile always sucks. And most people don't get through the first mile. So they go look at like David Goggins, like, oh my God, that guy's suffering for 4 hours straight or 20 hours straight. It's like, no, like once you get past that like initial warm up, it's like, it's not that big a deal. You just can feel like you can just go and go when you're in good cardio shape. But with the training, what I found is like I was able to just like really, really push to the point where it was counterproductive. Like when I would go hit legs and I would do it super hard and every set was like almost a failure, I wouldn't be able to sleep that night. Like I don't know if it was like my central nervous system was overloaded or like what it was, but I would just always get shit sleep after like a super hardcore leg day. So I started like splitting legs from like quads and hams. So I'd just do one and do a little bit less volume. Then I started doing the Menser thing. And I just felt like I got better results, better recovery, more strength, and I actually did less volume. It's kind of like the girl thing. Like sometimes you can do less effort in a better way and have a better result.
Interesting. I do want to go back to something that you skimmed over. Again, we're done in these stories. Unless you know these stories to pull them out, you just say something and just, just part of the conversation. The training you done for that bet, you hired Lance Armstrong.
Oh, that's right.
And he just said, yeah, I done some weeks of training. And not only did you get within that 48 hours, you went 30, 37?
32.
32, there we go.
So I actually didn't even hire him. I mean, I ended up donating to his charity because he wouldn't take any money. But he actually reached out to Joe Rogan and was like, hey, you know, can I train Dan? And Joe hit me up and was like, hey, like Lance wants to train you. Is it okay to give him your number? I was like, yes, it's okay to give him my number. Fax it to him, send it to him. Like, yes.
Yeah.
And it was funny, man. Like the first thing that I asked him when I got on the phone with him was like, okay, dude, like, what's the drug cocktail? Like, give me the drug.
Yeah,
like,
bro.
And he just like didn't want to talk about it. I'm like, bro, I can get anybody to teach me how to
Like,
pedal
come on,
a bike.
bro.
Like, I want you, you know, like, I know you know. And he just like didn't want to with it. And so I just ended up doing like a little bit higher HRT and didn't really change anything. But I was always kind of curious about that, like what endurance athletes would, I mean, you know, like, you know, they did the EPO and blood doping and stuff like that. But as far as like the hormone stuff, because they're also on hormone protocols, like what exactly is that? Because I know there's, you know, with certain stuff, there's not only is it like diminishing results, it's like negative. Like when I do, when I tried Anavar, it felt my HDL, my LDL, my cardio went to shit, you know, so there's definitely like, and I think it's more with the like really anabolic steroids, especially, it seems like the ones that you don't hold any water with it seems to have the worst effect, at least for me, on my cardiovascular output. So it's just kind of curious, like, you know, what do boxers do or what do endurance, you know what I mean? Like what is their cocktail? And I was always kind of curious about that. I figured I would get to, you know, hear it from him, but I didn't. So
that's crazy. Like I would have, okay, I've got everything here on the table. Just point to what I need to use.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, maybe your doctor can forward me something.
I mean, did he give you any like bike lessons or like how to breathe and like,
we
you know,
we wrote a little bike. Yeah, I mean, like there was one thing.
Take him on the Red Rock Loop, bro.
We actually did some drafting because I was able to have a car that I could draft. So we did some vehicle drafting, which is actually like harder than you think.
What is that?
So they do it in the Tour de France and all that. Like it's basically if you get behind somebody, there's a lot less wind resistance, so you can go a lot faster with less effort, and that gets magnified if it's a vehicle, right? So like it's like if there's zero wind resistance, you can go a lot faster. Really, like the limiting factor on a bicycle is how it's geared and then your wind resistance. It's not so much like your leg strength or whatever. So if there is no wind resistance, they've had guys that, I mean, that's how they got up to like the record where, I mean, I think a guy like pedaled to 100 miles an hour. I don't know. It was like some crazy speed, but he was like vehicle drafting. And sometimes even if like the vehicle is creating enough force, it can actually like suck you forward a little bit. But anyways, so we did some vehicle drafting, and it's touchy because you can't really see like what is directly in front of you because you have to stay really close to that bumper. And if it just like taps the brakes, you're like in that vehicle.
Yeah.
You know, so I saw this guy on YouTube. It was crazy, man. He was vehicle drafting a dump truck.
What?
At like 70 miles an hour. And I was just like, fuck? And it's like to Metallica or something. And like I would just like watch that before I'd go for a bike ride. It would get me all pumped up. But it's just crazy. This guy's going like 70 miles an hour, and he's like inches from a dump truck, and he like puts a GoPro on there, and then like before he stops riding, he like one arms at like 70 and like grabs the GoPro back off the back of the dump truck, like inches from the thing. It was just like crazy to watch. But yeah, it's the wind resist is a big deal.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I know we're kind of coming up on time. I know there's a few more topics that I can talk about, but I don't know if there's anything you wanted to pop it off. I want to talk about house parties because, bro, that's how I used to see all your stuff from the UK. The wild house parties, the chicks, the celebrities.
I can give you a little bit on that too.
I know, but I want to kind of talk about a little bit of that in this show before we part ways, because you are a man of many house parties, many celebrities, and many stories, I'm sure.
Can I give a few ground rules of these parties before you start in on that? First off, the scarcity model. Like, I'd be like trying to bring like celebrity dudes, and he's like, no. Like, especially not that guy. So the parties, bro, were the ratio in those parties was incredible.
Like what?
And it was hard not to. 20 to 1.
Yeah,
something like that.
It was
like
a minimum 10. Like if it was a 10 to 1, like it was pretty bad. Unless it was like really at scale. I think my last one had like 300 guys and like 3,000 girls. I remember it like started before the party because I would tell these girls, like, if you don't want a shuttle, you can Uber to my house, but you got to be here early. So I remember there was like one point when I had like 1,800 girls in like lingerie, and there was like 2 guys. Like one guy, like I had these contests, and I would like fly out like random guys to these parties just to blow their mind. And it was funny, man. There was like, I remember one point there was 1,800 girls in lingerie in the house, and there was like these 2 dudes from like Idaho or Wisconsin or whatever they were from. They were just like, what
the fuck?
What is going
stepping
on?
into that world.
And one of those guys ended up making out with Christina Hencher's, some famous hot bitch on Instagram or whatever. And I was like, somebody got a video, and I remember reposting it. And everybody's like,
Your life has changed, bro.
Yeah. It's like,
Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
yes, you are outside of the matrix. But yeah, I think I lost a lot more friends throwing parties than probably anything I ever did, because I would not let any guys in there. I mean, there was a lot of, almost every athlete I said no to, and like famous athletes, but I wanted it to be a situation where there was enough entertainment and enough like really big celebrities where the girls wouldn't mind the fact that they were having to fight tooth and nail to get some dick. So we could have ran out of alcohol. The music could have cut off. The electricity could have gone out. And that party was going to be awesome for all the guys there because the ratio is crazy. And at the end of the day, the only thing that guys go out for is to get pussy. Like, that's it. If you're a single guy, you're not going to the club to like drink beers with your friends. You're not going there to dance to the music. You're going to get pussy. And so I recognize that. I didn't have any like qualms about that. That was how it was. But in order for the girls also to have fun, I had to create an environment where, there was entertainment. Cardi B was performing, or Tyga, all these like, big artists. And then I would have a Cirque du Soleil show. I'd have all this shit. And then when I did like the pool parties, I would have masseuses and, champagne and
guys flying in and landing from helicopters.
That was more for me than the chicks, but it was still badass. R.I.P. That dude is a stud. But like, hair and like pedicures and manicures, like just shit, right? Like they just had shit that they could do. Yeah. And then it also gave them excuse to their boyfriends or whatever, like why they were coming over to my house. Like, oh, I just want to get the free pedicure and the champagne, I just wanted to tan. But it was a lot of work to do those. But I think I set a standard of like what was a gangster ass party. Like I remember one time I had DJ Carnage and Diplo and Alesso all spinning on the top floor, and I was like in this bed with like 20-something chicks, and Quaaludes were kicking in, and I was just like looking around. It was just like nothing but hot chicks, and I was like I did it, like that was the moment. That was like the moment on top where I felt like good about it. I was like, okay, like this is I've perfected the setup. There's nothing better. There's no better party that's ever been thrown. Like this is it. And that was actually, that felt pretty good. I got like 8 chicks that day.
One off the record.
Yeah, close to the record. And that was like one of my last parties. And I just remembered like, okay, like I did it. Like this is the top. Like we couldn't, I don't think there's no way to top this. This was like probably like one of the best parties that ever been thrown.
I remember the security team looked like they were ready to get deployed into Afghanistan. You should have seen these like
I had like snipers on the roof. I had these dudes with like literal machine guns, like and I made sure of it too. I was like, I don't want a guard out there that doesn't have a shotgun or a machine gun. Like I want everybody like ex-military. I had 70 of them. Like
it was the security teams were like.
And I remember they were like, why? I'm like, it's a show of force.
Show of force.
It definitely was.
Nobody's around at my parties. Like, there's no rapper sneaking in. Like, I don't want any bullshit, no fighting. Like, and it was just, I don't know, man. It was just like, whatever, man. We're spending $1 million on the party. What does it matter? Like, get the security guys. I remember there was one time, it was kind of funny, where the security guys got a little out of line, and they were like, there was like too many girls, and they wouldn't leave, and like they wouldn't get off my driveway, and there's like this line because like we had capacity, like there was capacity at these.
It was
parties.
crazy to get to
these girls would be like wrapped around like 4 city blocks in like lingerie, and the guards were like telling them to leave, and they just wouldn't get off my driveway. And I think at the time, like
started raining. It started raining early.
No, this is a different time.
Okay,
this was the one where they got the actual fire hose and were like hosing bitches off the driveway, and they're in heels, so their like legs would be coming out from under. I'm like,
what?
Like, bro, I'm gonna get sued. Like, stop. Like it's just funny, but like, don't.
Using a hose.
It's funny, but don't do that.
Yeah, like stop.
Can you imagine your younger self thinking, I got all these hot chicks in lingerie, and I am hosing them away from my house.
Blowing them off the driveway, literally.
Oh,
no, they were getting, like a fire hose, and they were in heels on a sloped driveway. So it was like literally like blowing them off of their feet because they like wouldn't walk off the thing. But yeah, it was crazy. I mean,
the good old days.
Yeah. Then there was like also the fights too of like girls that like wanted to stay there, and like the rooms are kind of like overrun. And I remember one time, like Alesso was I always gave like the person that was performing like the big guest room, and it was just like packed with chicks. And he's like, it was like funny because like some of them, I don't think it was him, but there was another DJ that was like, dude, like I need to get these girls out of my room, but he's like, but I don't want to get them out of my room. Yeah. He's like, but this is too many. Can you, he's like, can you take some of them? And that was like, and that was like the famous photo that I took where I was in the jacuzzi, I was in my bathtub, and I had like all these naked chicks in there. And I actually posted on my Instagram. I think they deleted it. And I just like took a selfie and sent it to him. And I was like, I'm full here.
Yeah. All full here. Can't sit here.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Like, sorry. But yeah, it was fun, man. Like it was everything that I ever thought a Playboy party was times 10. Because I went to the Playboy parties and they weren't that cool.
I can verify that too, because I threw a couple Playboy parties, Midsummer's Night's Dreams, and I'll say that Dan's parties, it definitely felt like that, right? It felt like at that level, because Playboy definitely did do it right. But I felt like even the guys were a lot cooler that you had in.
Like, a lot more guys.
The guys that were in Dan's party were way cooler. They weren't like creepy photographer types. And obviously Playboy had the mansion and the legend behind it. But Dan's parties definitely was the first that like really rivaled that. And, without an entire magazine and,
Yeah. I mean, he had the pipeline down to science.
Yeah.
Like, I will give credit where credit's due. Like, he was, first of all, he's the OG. He was the one that, like, set the stage for, like, what was to be a Playboy. But
Hugh Hefner we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Legend.
He had the pipeline figured out. That was, like, that's a big part that, like, a lot of these rich guys don't understand is, they use their money to brag or, like, they talk about it or whatever, but they don't use it to create an environment where women have to compete for them. And that was one of the things that the Playboy pipeline did for Hugh Hefner, was he just created a situation where like these girls were constantly coming in, fighting to stay at his house, fighting for a position in the magazine, fighting for his attention. And because of that, it was just like literally like the epitome of chasing. And so he would, just sit back and he would just choose. And so he probably didn't have to have any decent game at all. He could be the creepiest, weirdest dude in the world, and just none of it mattered. And he was just going to have his pick of the litter, and that's what he did for a long time. And it was interesting to watch that. He was an inspiration, But it's funny I say that, but then later on in life, when I watched him with those 3 bimbo blonde girls on that TV show,
Holly, Bridget, and Kendra.
Yeah, I saw it in a documentary. I think it was after he died. I remember watching that, and I was just like I do not envy that situation because I know what it's like to be there. And he's also with 3 girls that aren't into him at all.
Yeah.
Well, bro,
fucking
they live in their own life.
years old.
I was dating one at the same time.
Yeah, there you go.
They all speak for herself.
Yeah, like 2 out of the 3. There was one that was like his girl, and then the other 2 just had to kind of not have anything public.
Yeah, they were like banging basketball players, and they just like clearly were not into him. And it was kind of like one of these things that was like for the cameras and for us. And it was just like I just looked at that and I'm just like, this got to be miserable because like I haven't been doing this nearly as long as him. And if I'm 87 and it's 3 idiots, like shoot me in the face because you know I just got to a point in my life where I'm just like I just had a lot more fun hanging with my buddies, doing shit that I like to do. And I mean, getting pussy is fun and it's great and it's something that everybody should do so they figure out like what they like, what they don't like, so they don't feel like when they're in a relationship later that they might have missed out on something. I think that's a big piece that guys gloss over is if you haven't kind of gone out there and for a lot of girls and had your fun, you're always going to have a little bit of a wandering eye. I don't. Like, I could be in a relationship now and have some super hot chick come up to me and try and me, and if I didn't, I wouldn't feel like I missed out on anything. But if I was 25 years old and I was married and I was some Mormon guy and I had only a few chicks, I would be thinking about that shit for the rest of my life. And like, what would have that been like? You know? Like, and so,
how does the other side live?
Yeah. So I just feel like it's good to get that out of your system as a man. You know, I think
100%.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just impossible to be faithful. You know.
Is that where you're at now in life?
I could definitely do monogamy. I've done monogamy. I'm actually a proponent of it. I feel like if you really like the girl, it's very difficult to get a woman that is going to be interested in you for the right reasons that won't be like really hurt by you and a bunch of other girls. You know, so it's just one of those things where it sounds good in theory. I've done it. You can do it to a point. It's just so hard. And then there's just always bullshit and fallout. And I feel like you can't really be in love and have like a really solid relationship where you feel like that person's got your back and you got theirs and you guys are like Bonnie and Clyde if you're out in a bunch of other pussy. Like there's just always going to be, you know, like that strain on the relationship. And I just don't think it's necessary. Like I said, I just don't care. Like I'm at a point in my life where I don't give about banging hot chicks that much. Like it's just like, it's fun to do. Like, you know, not gay, but like, I'm not going to like schedule my day around it. I'm not going to spend 5 hours a day scheduling the pussy and like doing all the shit that I used to do. I'm not going to let it consume my life. And if I don't have it, I don't care. Like, I'm not going to really miss it. And so I think that was like a big deal for me, especially as a sex addict, like beating that addiction. So I feel good about that. That's probably like one of my like most proud accomplishments.
Is that a new thing?
Is beating that sex addiction. I mean, I would say around about the time of my book is when I beat all my addictions because I just really zeroed in and focused on that. And I had one girl. She was cool. She wasn't just, you know,
Lizard.
Yeah. She was hot. She's cool. She's like, you know, 18-year-old sex freak that just like showed up my door on her birthday and just never left. Like, it wasn't something that I ever expected to like.
Stray cat that just came in.
Literally, like I was like, you can come for 3 days. She's like, please let me come for longer. I'm like, no. She's like, how about 4? I'm like, okay, 4 is it. You have to leave after 4 days. And then just like didn't leave.
The negotiations.
It was a whole thing. But I was just in a place where I was so focused on the book and doing that I just didn't want the distractions. It was like she was, you know, running around in lingerie and like ready to bang me anytime I want to bang her or suck my dick while I was writing the book or, you know, whatever, like anytime, any place. So I had no need for the sex and I didn't really get tired of banging her. And she was cool and she's actually smart and she was willing to do all the stuff that I did, like mountain biking, wake surfing, you know, free diving, whatever. So it was just like, you know, it was almost like a placeholder. I didn't obviously have any like serious mental connection with an 18-year-old, but it was nice to not have the distraction. And I think some of the girls that I've dated in my life, it wasn't because they were the hottest chick or the girl that was like, you know, the smartest or whatever. It was just like sometimes I just got to a place where I just didn't want to deal with it. And she was cool. She didn't cause no problems. The pussy was good, and she was like into similar shit. So it's just like, okay, this is enough. Like
you can stay.
Checked all the boxes.
We're gonna stay with this for a little while, and then a little while turned into a longer while. And you know, that was just some of the relationships that I had, and some of those were monogamous, and it was just, and I didn't mind it. It was like whatever. I didn't care. Like I ended up breaking up with her because I did want other chicks at the end, and I didn't want to like do it behind her back, so I did the right thing, and I broke up with her. And
such a gent.
Yeah. And then I went off on a crazy tear again, and then. But my tears got shorter. Like, think 2011, 12-ish was like the first real like crazy run, and that one went till I was like 2016. That was like balls to the wall, like nonstop, like partying, gambling. Like that was like, I would say that was like the Motley Crue era for me. That was like the drugs, sex, and rock and roll craziness.
Prime IG too?
What's that?
Was that Prime IG for you, or was that?
Yeah, that was like when I was blowing up on IG. Like initially, for the first time, I was getting famous. I just won, you know, $50-100 million in poker, and I was, you know, just shit was just going. Like I got my plane. I was just like, it was like the Scarface moment when they're like running into the bank with the duffel bags.
Push it to the limit.
Yeah, exactly. It was like that was literally my life, and I did that until 2016, and then I was like, man, I need to chill out. And I remember at that point, I got a girlfriend. And I did like the couples vacations, like went to Kauai. We were doing surf trips and shit like that. And I was just so much happier. And I was hanging with my buddies, would play cards. I'd my girl at night. I'd hang with my boys, would hit the gym, would free dive, would surf, would do all the shit that we like to do. There was, you know, my girl was there when I wanted her, but like, and she would hang with the other girls. It was just like, it was just nice. There was no stress. Yeah. And I was just like, man, like I'm so much more at peace and so much happier doing this. And I did that for like a year, and then that was like when I was like, okay, I gotta monetize this fame, because I'm taking pictures with every asshole in every parking lot, and I have no privacy. Like I gotta do something with this, or I'm gonna regret it. So then I kind of like went into Ignite just because I like wanted to just finish that chapter, and then I like, you know, kind of like went all the way to the limit there. But it was less because I wanted to do the crazy partying and more for like the brand, but like we did it on a whole, because like in order for it to be fun, we had to do it like way bigger and way crazier. So I was doing it way bigger and way crazier, but I would actually say that like the 2015-16 was more nuts because it was new and it was fresh, and I was doing it because it was fun and I wanted to do it, and I'd never done it before. And like also back then, girls were like, I feel like a lot crazier because everything wasn't really on the internet like it is now. And so it seemed like, I don't know, it seemed more rock starish then. And then later I just didn't give a, like in 2019, I had like so many girls, like I didn't care. So it didn't give me like that dopamine hit. Like I didn't like go high five my buddy. Like, dude, I just 2 chicks in the bathroom. Like, it was just like, whatever. Like none of it was just like any big deal. Like I remember eating breakfast with my buddy, and I was like, yeah. He's like, what'd you do last night? I was like, oh, like 5 chicks or whatever. And it was just like, it wasn't even just like, oh, that's cool. You know, that was just like,
it's just normal conversation at this. It's pretty normal conversation at this point.
I've gotten so like numb to it that it just didn't even like hit a pleasure spike at all. It was just like, oh yeah, that's what I was doing. And then I just did it all the time. It was just no big deal. You know, like I got way more enjoyment out of it in 15, 16. I guess that was the big differentiator.
But the sound of it, though, everything that's been going on, it seems like strip all that away, you still, and most pleasurable thing for you is just to be chilling out, hanging out with you guys.
100%. And working out, doing shit, like that just makes me feel good. Like there's nothing better than sitting on your ass on the couch after you just
eating snacks
yourself into oblivion in the gym, or you just did something like long mountain bike, you went surfing for 2 hours, like, and just relaxing with your friends, smoking weed, playing cards. Like, it's just nice, you know? And it's like no distractions, no headaches, no stress, no stupid girls running around talking about stupid shit, not having to like worry about like, who am I gonna next, or is this chick mad about this? You know, it's just none of it. It's just
all those girls out, I feel like there's a lot of stress added, like just trying to manage personalities, manage the situation. It's like, nah, I just want to, I don't want to have any of that stress.
100%.
Is there a world where you see yourself getting married, having kids?
I don't see much upside in marriage unless you're going to have kids. That would be the only time that I think it would make sense for a guy that has a lot of money. Unless it's like your high school sweetheart that she's just been there, ride or die from the beginning, and it's just, that would be different. Like your situation's probably different, and you got kids, and it's just like, I get that. I do get that. But like, if Jason Strauss were to go get married, I'd be like, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing? Like, come on.
He's delayed it a long time, so.
I mean, I get it, but like, what's the upshot? So I think it's different when it's somebody that you like, you know, is like been there for you, is down for you. Like the money's not a thing. I think like once you it's really hard to know if and who gives a if they're there for the right reasons anyways. Like, why make your relationship transactional? And I feel like that's what marriage does once you become rich and then get married. Like, if you do it before and you guys grow together and the whole thing, like, I get it, it's different. But if you're already successful, you're literally like almost putting a bounty on your relationship. Because if she marries you and then divorces you, she's getting $100 million. She's getting $200 million. She, whatever it is, like, she's getting a big chunk of money. And then also, I feel like that just disincentivizes her from like trying as hard. And I think a lot of relationships are good because like one side is like really trying hard and the other person appreciates that. And the guy likes that attention and he likes the fact the girl's like waking him up with a blowjob every day. And then now he marries her and then all of a sudden the blowjob stops. She gets fat. It's just like
the fun stops.
What? Yeah, the fun stops. It's like, wait, what? And then now he feels trapped because now it's like, okay, do I want to get new pussy? It's going to cost me $200 million, or do, you know what I mean? Like, or do I just want to cheat on the side? And then he kind of like resents her. It's just this whole thing, and it's unnecessary. And to me, the best relationships are ones where it's like yours, where it's like been for a long time and whatever, or a relationship where like you guys are both hanging out because you want to hang out, and you're not married, and you're not forced, and it's just like you hang out because you want to, and if somebody wants to leave, they can leave, right? And so that's, to me, kind of like where I'm at, is like, I get it. I understand why people do it. I just feel like for me, it's a negative free roll.
I'm just shocked there's no little Dans running around. You got a pull-out game is fucking good, bro.
There's definitely little bambinos out there.
Testosterone and condoms, boys. So test is actually more effective as birth control than condoms have shown. And I also did use condoms like nonstop for like a 4-year period. I would jerk off with a condom. I mean, I barely jerked off, but even if I did, like, it was just never. Yeah. Well,
it's easier for cleanup.
Well, it's like when you get blind, like your hearing gets better. Like you just get more sensitive, Like, so if you're always wearing one, it's not a big deal. But if you're wearing it some of the time and then you don't, then it's just like, oh, all I can think about is it doesn't feel as good, or am I going to be able to keep my dick hard, or you know what I'm saying? I just want to rip this thing off, and then half the sex is you thinking about ripping the condom off, And it's just, I don't know. Like I said, I did it for a long time, and I wore one every time, and it was not a big deal. I didn't notice it until I stopped.
Yeah, but even like the nights where you're like out and you're drunk and you're like,
that's different. I didn't drink though. Yeah. I didn't drink. If I drunk, that.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Back then,
barely, bro. I could count the times that I've been drunk in my life. Probably like.
That's good.
It's not a lot. I mean, I did a lot of GHB.
I was gonna say you look pretty.
No, I'm bent up, but like GHB, Quaaludes, like it was different shit.
Yeah.
In college, it was the G. Later, it was the Ludes, and then there was a lot of weed. Like 2018 to 20, I don't think I had sex one time not high. And I had a lot of sex.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was like 3 years. And I don't think I jerked off once in 3 years. And I don't think I had sex one time when I wasn't high.
That actually makes sense to me, right? Because it's like everything is better when you smoke weed.
Yeah.
Food tastes better. Sex is better.
It's almost
everything's funny.
It's almost like having sex high feels better than having sex without a condom when you're like used to that. You know, like a crazy. And then
I'll take it for granted. Dan, I know we talked all over the place. I know we've gone a little bit over time, but in landing the plane, I know you're working on your supplement brand.
Yep.
The floor is yours. I'd love to hear this from you. I know that you and I spoke, oh my gosh, maybe a year ago, and you were telling me you were doing this. And you do a lot of due diligence in anything you do. That's one thing with the book. I know you told me about that 3 years ago, that you were going to be working on that. And no, it's great for me to remember these conversations we had, and full circle, things are coming into fruition now. So the supplement line.
Yeah, finally finished that. I almost started that about the same time as the dating thing. I mean, these things, I'm just such a perfectionist, and I want to get everything right. So with the supplement thing, I went down the direction of no artificial sweeteners and just like 100% natural stuff. So what I noticed, when I did the insulin for a very short period of time, was that when I would have stuff that had artificial sweeteners in there, it just like would affect my gut. Like I wouldn't feel right. And so, because it's just like, it makes you like a sponge, right? You just absorb everything. And even when I didn't do the insulin, it with my gut, but not as much. But I noticed it, and I was like, okay, it's for sure that, because I would do the protein with artificial sweeteners, and then I would just do the nasty chalky shit that had nothing, and it would taste gross, but it wouldn't put my gut. And so what we ended up doing is we perfected this protein. I mean, I'm literally, and no bullshit. You know I don't bullshit. Like the best tasting protein I've ever had in my entire life. You don't make much money on protein. Protein's like a very small margin thing, but we nailed it. You know, like that is.
Where's the samples, bro?
Dude, I just keep eating them all. So hopefully I'll have them.
Keep eating them all.
I cannot. It's literally like a dessert because I don't have any sugars. I don't have any sweet shit. So like, it's literally like my cheat. I feel like my protein shakes are like my cheat meal. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it. The pre-workouts, you know, taste kind of shitty, but it works really good. But the protein tastes amazing, and the other stuff, you know what I mean? Like we nailed the flavors. We got some hydration packs. It's basically like all the important stuff that I would take with a supplement line if I could get it without the artificial sweet. I mean, remember we were taking the BCAAs. It tasted like nasty feet because we didn't
Flex
want
his feet.
Yeah, we didn't want the artificial sweeteners. So I remember, like, you know what, I'm going to do it. You know,
you when you in his house, you messaged me and go, bro, this tastes like feet.
Bro, well, he didn't tell me. He said, he goes, it doesn't taste good, so you don't want to just mix it with water. And I was in the like, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean?
Same. I had a whole thing, and now I had to drink the 16 ounces.
Yeah. And he had a flavored one, and I was like, I don't know if you should do that, dude. I'm telling you, it tastes like Flex's feet. Not that I tasted his feet, but if I could imagine what his feet tasted like, that's what it is.
That was pure EAAs. That's the thing.
Yes.
Did you try that? What I gave him?
I did. It was disgusting, but I would rather drink something that tasted disgusting, but didn't have the artificial. So I made something that doesn't taste disgusting and doesn't have the artificial shit. So I'm going to give it to you when I get it, but I think I really like it, man.
So this is launched or launching, Dan?
Launching. It's called Protocol. That's the name of the line. And I think in another week or two. So probably by the time you release this, it'll be out.
Fantastic. Right around the corner.
Yeah, good timing. So
where can people get this?
I mean, we're probably just going to do online, D2C, you know, to start, because I don't know, man. Do anybody go to GNC anymore? I feel like everybody just like orders their shit online.
Everybody orders online, I think.
Yeah, that's the new business model, D2C. Yeah. And is there anything else that's coming down the pipeline you can tell us about that you're working on, Dan?
No, those were like I just put a lot of effort into those two projects. You know, I don't do a lot of shit. I don't really like promote a lot of shit, but like when I would do something, I really put a lot into it. And this was supposed to be done over a year ago for both of it, but man, I don't know. Just you'd be surprised how many tweaks you can make. I mean, we saw it in my book. I did 37 edits. You know?
It's really gotten in the way of our workout schedule. And then you get injured. It's just a, you know, what do I do
how he
around
blames you, and then he blames he left you.
Excuses.
He left you to come to me, and I was like, am I the side chick here? And then we started training, and then I hyped myself up, and then he jumps back to you.
Yeah.
So, we're J-Rock Eskimo Brothers right now.
Exactly.
On that note, mate, anything else from you, my friend?
Not much, man. Who you voting for?
Fuck, man. I honestly,
I already know who you're voting for.
yeah, I mean, I don't even think it's close. I mean, I like Trump. He's a locker room guy. I think he's pretty straight up. My only criticism of Trump is just his support of Israel. But I mean, you'd have to be. I mean, dude, how could you ever vote for Kamala? I mean, she's like the drunken school teacher. Like, she's atrocious.
I know.
She just doesn't have the credits underneath her to pull off running the country. She's never even owned a business herself. Right?
I don't understand how they didn't put Big Mike in there. Honestly, like I think she would have had a decent shot. I mean, I think she would have. Probably.
Does she want that life?
I don't know.
Like, who wants that life? Honestly, it's like,
yeah, it's strange. I think the only person that would want to be president is somebody that's like trying to make money off of it, or somebody that like really wants to do something good. And I don't think hardly anybody does it because they want to do the right thing. I think
let's be clear about who we're talking about. Big Mike.
Oh yeah, Michelle. Michelle.
Oh my god. Yeah, she would have been a strong candidate. I'm shocked that they didn't push her.
Yeah.
I just don't think she wants any part of it. Like, why do you want your life ripped apart?
It's hard. Yeah, you can't blame them. I mean, this is like, the media is just going to shit on whoever's in there. Everybody's going to criticize every single thing about you. You're going to live under a microscope. I mean, like I said, you have to really be doing it for the right reasons or really want money that bad. And I think that's why we don't get very many good candidates, is because
it's true.
Would want to do that.
When I was a kid, everybody, it was like, you know, being the president of the United States was kind of like it was this honor, right? It was like, it was a lot of kids in class would be like, I want to be the president of the United States.
Before
I doubt anybody
social media.
Yeah.
Before social media.
Before social media.
Like before you get your entire life ripped apart all the time and your whole family's life ripped apart, like everything bad, you know. So I think you got to have like really thick skin to even want to do that. So I do give some respect. But like I said, I think a lot of the people that do it for the wrong reasons. So,
well, Trump, I think, is doing it for the right reasons. I mean, you saw that this assassination attempt.
Yeah, I mean, that was a whole crazy thing. I don't know what was going on behind that. I mean, they knew about the shooter for a long time, and they didn't do anything.
There's a lot of things there. When you start really looking and unpacking everything and all the details and all the evidence, it's just hard to.
They scrubbed this kid's house too.
Yeah,
that's a fact.
It's really weird. I mean, this kid just like wakes up one day and decides to drive 2 hours to go take pot shots to the president. Can't hit a standing target at 150 feet or yards, or whatever. Like, I mean, I was shooting. I mean, you were in the military. We were shooting standing 400 yards at iron sights, hitting. You know what I mean? Like 9 out of 10 shots. Like, and this guy in the prone position with a scope can't hit 1 out of like I don't know. Just
that little head tilt. I mean,
that's one.
That's one. But
shot
I think
7 times, right?
Shot 7. I thought it was 3.
There was 8 shots.
What?
Well, he did only shoot 3. That's what I think.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
But I mean, like when you start looking at the sound of the shots, when you start really getting into the like evidence of the event, it stinks really bad.
I mean,
it stinks really bad, and I'm tired of them trying to just sweep it under the rug like nothing ever happened. Right? It was just this kid, and they keep using this kid in this picture of him when he was 15 years old, not the 22-year-old photo of him, and what he looks like now. And I just feel like media is just really suppressing it, and it's a big deal, and it bugs me.
Well, I look at it like a girl. You lie to me once, and I'm not going to trust you. You lie to me twice, and I'm for sure not going to trust you. You lie to me 3 times, and I trust you. I'm the idiot, right? And so the government's lied to us, many, many times. You saw it with COVID. You saw it with all this stuff.
Yep.
The media's lied to you. So I'm at a point now, I just don't believe anything they say.
I'm in the same place, unfortunately,
I just don't believe any of it. Like, so, I don't know if we landed on the moon. I don't know any of this shit. Like, the only thing I'm pretty sure of is the Earth ain't flat. Like, aside from that, I'm questioning everything, bro. Like,
we're gonna get all these comments now about
flat earthers. Yeah. They're gonna start coming in heavy.
So I mean, like Guido Liberté, the guy that owns Cirque du Soleil, I play poker with him at his house in Ibiza, and he's got a whole book of when he went into space for 3 weeks, and he's taking photos of the Earth and it's around. I have pilots that have flown around the entire globe on my plane with me. I've gone completely around the globe multiple times, and I didn't run into the end of it. Yeah. So like, nobody's ever had there's 8 billion people on the Earth with phones, and nobody's taken a picture of the edge. No. If it's not, if it's flat, there has to be an edge here, 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 and here. So anyways, that one is just like retard central. But the rest of it, I don't know, man. Like, like they just bold-faced lied over and over and over about COVID. So, lied to us about JFK. It's like, 60, 70 years later, they still don't want to release the files? Like, why do we not have the right to know, like, who killed the president of our country?
Mm-hmm. And we do have the right, and they keep suppressing that information. The CIA keeps suppressing it, and you get another 3-letter agency pop up like herpes.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like everywhere. These
the CIA seems to be just operating like a terrorist organization, and I don't know, man. It's a very strange state of affairs that we are in with our country, but it doesn't seem like the people that are in control are actually controlling it. And you see that with AIPAC. You see they all have these little AIPAC handlers. AIPAC constantly brags about like, we supported 100% of the Democrats that won. And it's like, and look, I know on a small scale because I've like donated to, different politicians and stuff. And I donated like $100,000 to this guy. I donated like $50,000 to this guy, $100,000 to this guy. They text me all the time. Like, is there anything you need? Like, how you doing? Yeah. It's like, what if you gave 100 million?
Wow.
Like, what does that get you? Because I know what 100,000, and like, I don't need anything. I don't leave my house. I don't do shit.
Now you're playing with the big boys.
I'm like, I'm good. I don't need anything. But like, what if you did?
Yeah.
And what if you gave 100 million? You know what I mean? Like, what?
You're at Epstein's Island.
That's
right?
Another fucking.
And then like, why hasn't that come out? Because that's an Israeli Mossad operation to get dirt on our politicians and control them. And they don't want to release that information. They don't want to release politicians because they still have dirt on those people, and those people are in control. So like, who's actually in control?
It's a crazy thing. It's like the only time they haven't actually gone after the people who were actually doing all the dirty work. And obviously Epstein, he died in prison, so
I mean, bro,
killed himself.
They're literally in civil war in England right now, and I just saw a video of them arrest a guy for Facebook comments.
I've sent you stuff.
Yeah,
like women are being raped.
Been stressed out.
Women are being raped in the streets, and you are spending your time and resources arresting a guy for making offensive Facebook comments. Like, On what planet, you know? And it's like everybody wants to blame the Muslims, and it's like there's a whole country of Muslims. You have the UAE, you've got Saudi, you've got a lot of places where it's all Muslim, and they don't have all these problems. You have a border problem, you've got a crime problem, and you're not controlling it, you know? And it's like I got into an argument with my buddy the other day, and, you know, he's like arguing that it's the Muslims, and he's a black guy. And I'm like, okay, well, blacks commit over half the violent crimes in America. Do we have a black problem? I don't think so. Would you argue that? You know, it's like a quarter of the globe is Muslim. So you're just going to say a quarter of the globe is bad? Like, no, it's bullshit. Like, you know, we've got a problem with nationalism. We've got a problem with the media. We've got a problem with our open borders, and nobody's doing anything about it. It's like, and it's not like a maybe. It's like we have borders for a reason. Yeah. Like, why even issue passports? Why make me go through all this headache if you're just going to let all these guys just run across? And now you're going to let them vote, and now you're going to give them like
free health insurance.
There's all crimes just jumping up. They're cutting financial systems for, you know, poverty individuals, veterans, Social Security's like now in question, right? It's like, what are we doing, right? Where's all this money going? We're putting money into war, inflation.
Sending it overseas.
Yeah, exactly. Where's the money going, and why is our standard of living lower now than it was 50 years ago when we have automated all this stuff? We've got more people working. We've got, you know, more efficient means to produce things, and yet our standard of living is going down? Like, where's all the money going? Follow the money. You know, like follow the money, and you'll find out like who's us.
Yeah, it's just it's one of those things where my dad and progressively I've like paid a lot more attention to politics and things, and you know, we're not always the good guys, right? We've done a lot of bad stuff around the world, you know, and unfortunately I believe the same as you in the fact that our government could be doing a lot more. Obviously, I think they have let the borders open on purpose. And whatever reason that is, we'll find out, right? But it's not helping anybody in this country. Yeah, nobody here is prospering from 20 million immigrants coming over the border right now.
I'll tell you what it's doing. It's helping them control our country, because when people are divided, they're easy to control. So you want to go to the root of the problem. You go to the people that are pushing this bullshit narrative, the media, the government. You look at like the root of the problem is the people that are pushing this and are responsible for this. And then you look at like, why would they want to do this? Like, why would they want to divide us? Why would they want racism to be at an all-time high? Why do they want to focus on all these negative things? Why do they want to rip the nation apart? Because it's a lot easier to control people that aren't, you know, unified. And it's a lot harder to unify when you destroy nationalism, when you attack the majority, which is white people. It's like, you should be ashamed of being white. Like, I literally saw 2 celebrities yesterday, like, basically apologize for being white. Like Sean Strickland was like, I wanted to like yell at this bum, but he was black, so I, you know, like it like went on this whole thing, and like even he used to be a skinhead, like what the man, and like and then there was like some other guy, I think it was like Ben Stiller or something. He's like, yeah, like I wish I was a black guy. I was like, what, like. You know, it's just like, it's just crazy. And I don't give a shit what race you are, but like, you shouldn't make people apologize for their race, regardless of what it is. That's like literally the definition of racism. So like in this whole like scope of like, oh, we want to like make everything equal and, you know, not racist, they're like making everything racist, because like you can't make people ashamed of their race and then other people, you know, have this victim mentality and not expect there to be like downstream negative of that. So yeah, I mean, I just wish that we would start figuring out like who is pushing this bullshit and cut that head off.
There's a lot of bullshit that's being pushed right now, and nobody I know agrees with it. That's the thing.
There's so much going on right now. I mean, we could do a whole nother podcast on that, but we won't.
I know.
We won't
send them the tank. And actually, that guy that we started off the podcast talking about is right me right now. I'm busting to piss.
Yeah.
So
I am actually also have to.
Okay.
Piss.
Well, if that isn't a way of segueing off my own podcast, at least it's not our guest. But Dan, mate, thank you very much. Always great seeing you. Obviously, you train you at the gym, and as you know, I've said many stories. I've told a lot of people this story in particular. There's a lot of celebrities that train in this gym, you know. But I love to invest into this gym to give everybody the best product, selfishly including myself. But there's not many people that hit me up and text me and genuinely thank me for bringing in X piece or whatever it is. And every time I've done that, I've told you this story. You've hit me up, mate. And you don't understand, for me as the gym owner, as your boy as well, how much I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate the gym. I mean, this is literally probably the first public gym that I've worked out in like 16 or 17 years. And I've got a pretty nice gym at my house. But I just always train harder here. And I don't know if it's because the chicks have bigger arms than me or if it's the equipment, but I just think it's just kind of like the environment. When you come to a gym like this, you're not going to half-ass it, you know? Not that I would like really half-ass it at my gym, but it's just like, I feel like it just pushes you to a different level. And I also like, I'll ask guys for a spot here, you know what I mean? Like, and I wouldn't have that at my gym. So I will just, I don't know, I'll go the extra mile here. And so I do appreciate you building kind of like, you know, a mecca for people that take the sport seriously.
So you're home from home, and you bring, you know, again, you being in this gym makes this gym, you know, all that added value just makes this gym what it is, mate, for everybody else that comes in you. Because there's so many fans that come in and are very hesitant about seeing you. Of course, we have some crazy ones, which you remember too. It's like guys in your face filming you, literally in his face. Like,
oh, really?
And yeah, he came up to me. Dan was like, "Hey, Flax," I said, "Do you mean to move this guy for you, Dan?" He's like, "Nah, he's okay. And then I seen this guy again, relentless. "Hey, you mean to?" He's like, "Yeah, if you don't mind." This guy's in my, and he was in his grill.
He was like actually filming my set of squats, which I felt like it was a little strange.
Oh, that's weird.
Closer than
Super
this.
weird.
Closer than this. But everybody loves seeing you, bro. Everybody who meets you, everybody says great things about you because you genuinely give time for the fans and chat it up, and obviously everybody goes on their own way. So, I mean, I appreciate you for who you are and on the Dan that I've got to meet outside of the guy that I seen on social media, mate. And there's only one Dan Bilzerian, my friend.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
I appreciate you. J-Rock.
My man, hope you didn't have the squat pad on in that video, all right?
This is Flax.
This is Rock.
We are out.